What's it like to be a pastor while you're going to seminary?
Talk about on-the-job training. The stories I could tell you.
Yeah.
Here's this young whippersnapper that's overconfident and thinks he can figure out just about anything. And I'm not a farm kid. I go out to a community that's all farms. Best people on, I mean, just fantastic people. These people were so gracious to us because I was only 25 years old, and they knew that I didn't know anything, but they saw it as part of their vocation or part of their mission to help me become somebody who did know something, who did. So they were. They didn't have to be that gracious to us.
Yep.
They could have just punted us. Um, and so there was a lot of trial and error. It's harder than it looks. I kind of thought I could figure some stuff out, and you do some things. You go, okay, that probably is not the best way to get at that. So it was a good experience because while I'm doing all the formal education, I'm getting immersion in sitting with people as they die,
Yeah.
being with them when there's a great tragedy, when one of their kids is killed in a car wreck, of sitting with people just out on their porch and visiting and listening to their life stories. People who had very different life experiences than I did. Being with folks who had been widowed for 20 years and getting married again. I got the real stuff of ministry, the real stuff of life. It was a tremendous gift. Doing it over again, I wouldn't change that at all. I think I would have really struggled if I'd only been in the educational part and not been in that immersion kind of thing.
Mm.
And it was good because I had to preach 3 times a week. I had to, here I am in school driving 61 miles each way to seminary, and I had to have a sermon on Sunday morning at 11. I had to have a different sermon on Sunday night for Sunday night service at 6 o'clock, and then I had to lead a Bible study on Wednesday night. So 3 different preps every week, and that discipline that gets you up the learning curve in a hurry.
No
You know,
question. What did you love about being a pastor, not just in that initial experience, but throughout your life?
well, one of them is what probably 2 things. One of them is what I just touched on is that there is nothing else quite like that, of the access that you are granted and permitted into people's lives at some of the most human moments. Great joy.
Mm.
We've been waiting for a child for 14 years. We're giving birth. Great pain.
Mm.
My wife just got diagnosed. And it's such a sacred privilege to be with people in those moments. And unless you're a pastor, and I'm counting priests obviously as pastors, it's a different kind of access that the pastor is given. Had Alan Hunt been a layperson in that congregation, I still could have been physically present and emotionally present, but it's not the same.
Yeah.
So that is such a sacred privilege. And then the other is there's nothing really quite like leading a group of people, a congregation. And I had a congregation of hundreds and I had a congregation of thousands, but it's still the same, no matter the size. There's nothing like trying to lead them to really become the best version of the congregation, not just individually, but to lead them to do great things, to be able to respond to a tragedy in your city, the church, to rally them and to mobilize them, to really serve some people who are struggling, and to mobilize them and to get a very eclectic group of people, and to be able to try to inspire and organize and mobilize them so that they feel what it's like to really be the body of Christ yoked together, and the union of being common in mission. Leading that is, it's just an incredibly sacred privilege. There's nothing else like those 2 things. You don't get in any other role ever.
Mm.
So those are the 2 things I enjoy the most.
Ministry comes at a cost,
Sure.
not only to you, but the people around you.
Sure.
What price has ministry exacted, and how has that affected you and those close to you?
Well, there's never been anybody in the history of my family that was bald before me. So evidently that was the impact.
That's the price.
God said, you get to do these things, but it's going to cost you your hair. You know, that's such a hard question to answer because it does come with a cost, and it's very hard to describe. Anita and I talk about this occasionally because obviously she gets it because she's been on the journey with me. Um, we're not 50-50 partners, we're 100-100 partners. I mean, she's been an integral part of all of it. And she probably understands, no, she doesn't probably, she does understand ministry better and churches better than I do. I mean, I mean, so we both understand the cost, and it's hard to describe. Um, Obviously there's the personal cost of, um, when you're given that kind of access to people, you also get them at some of their worst moments.
Yeah.
And a lot of times they take it out on you, because you're there, and also because as the pastor, you're seen as somebody that kind of has to take it. And so you take a lot of verbal abuse and a lot of, I mean, there are things that people will say to a pastor that they would never say to anybody else because they think they can get away with it. So there's that, and you have to sort of adapt and go, okay, I understand. This is really, it's not about me. This is about the office, the role, the position. My uncle, who was the pastor in Indiana for so long, he said he retired, I guess, in the early mid '90s, right as I was kind of getting started. And he said, "Man, I am so glad that I retired before email."
Hmm.
He said, "Because I sit here and look at some of the emails that you share with me." He said, it's astonishing what people will send to their pastor. Woo. So that's one, and you kind of you get used to that, I guess. I think the harder part for me was what I alluded to a little while ago about, it's one thing for me to give my yes to God, say, yeah, I'm gonna give up everything and go do this. And it's another thing for Anita to do that as my wife and my partner. But I don't think I ever anticipated it had, by doing that, my kids are also going to pay the cost.
Yeah.
And they didn't ask for that.
Yeah.
They didn't get the opportunity to say yes. They just showed up. And so um, the life of being in a fishbowl, of having everything scrutinized, of having everything evaluated, um, the countless decisions that you have to make as a pastor. Okay, my daughter's giving her piano recital, and the key leader in our church is getting ready to die, and his wife has just called and asked me if I could get there as quickly as possible. What are you going to do? And the fact that you have to make those decisions over, I mean, all the time. It's not
Yeah.
like it's a one-time kind of moment. And those where you're trying to balance, I owe something to my wife and my kids. I owe something to, and so you're always sort of divided. Um, and so there's a cost to that. You're on vacation. You're finally away. You got 2 Sundays off a year as the Methodist pastor. You're finally away, and one of your staff members has an extreme sexual misconduct, and there's a massive rift in the congregation. Your family's finally away, and you got to go back. And so there's always that tension between your family and and the church. Um, and so there's a cost to that. There's a cost to that. Um, but to come to the realization that my kids didn't ask for it, and to help them understand why their mother and father were doing what they were doing, but also to give them enough space to be able to at least navigate. They didn't get a choice, but they can navigate how they were going to do that, and they could respond in different ways when we come home and say, I know a bunch of kids at school are having a party, but why didn't you go? Well, I didn't get invited. Well, why didn't you get invited? Well, I'm the pastor's kid, and so kind of going through that kind of stuff and giving them room to do it on their own and not trying to kind of solve it all, but giving them that freedom in that. So yeah, I don't even know how you get at the cost, but that's sort of the point, isn't it? I mean, isn't that kind of what Jesus says? Take up your cross, deny yourself, and follow every day and follow me. So we all, I mean, not to sound trite, but we all um, are called anyway to follow him, and following him in all of our lives, no matter who you are, has some cost. Um, but there is a unique cost of being in full-time ministry. Yeah, no question.
Was it worth it?
Oh yeah, wouldn't have changed a thing. Wouldn't have changed a thing. Um, It was. I mean, it's deeply satisfying. I mean, I still feel the same way about what we do. To be able to give your life over to this, the satisfaction and I don't know what the word is, but just that deep sense of satisfaction of, I'm doing something meaningful with my life, and I think that um, was why I was struggling in my old role, because as much as I liked my role in business, I knew that that wasn't, um, that I was made for this, and as long as I was doing this, I wasn't going to be satisfied. I had to do this because this is what I was made for. Everybody's not made for this. I get that. Some people are made for that, and that's their role in God's economy and God's kingdom. It's cool. Just I wasn't, and so I don't think I ever would have been satisfied had I not done it.
Mm.
And I've been really blessed, man, um, to be able to be a pastor for 20 years, to be able to do talk radio and engage with all kinds of strange people across the culture in a secular setting, and to try to sort of be a voice of faith and voice of hope and love in that, and then to partner with you and trying to do what we're doing. I mean, I've just been incredibly, incredibly fortunate.
Mm.